As you can see all around me here, they're tapped out. And this is not just indicative of my local dealerships here. This is everywhere. Go to your local dealerships. I guarantee it, you're going to see the same exact thing. It is 110% a buyer's market. Substantial discounts. I'm talking 20 to 40% off on some of these vehicles. Expect that. In the coming months, trade-ins are going to come down, and well, new vehicle inventory is going to remain extremely high. Dealership lots are going to get flooded and overrun. All other vehicles are just caked with dust and dirt and grime. They've been sitting on a dealership lot for dang near 2 years. Look at this, $107,000. Their lots are going to get flooded. They have to go somewhere. They have to move this metal unless they want to go belly up as a dealership. Look at that, 6 figures now, 103,000, just under 104 grand for this Super Duty pickup. This right here is a failing segment across the country. They've hiked up MSRPs over 42% since 2019, but our pay and salaries hasn't come close to growing that much in that time. People have wisened up. They've realized that the quality of these vehicles is not what it once was. They're all made entirely out of Mexico now. No thanks. They're running out of space on their dealership lots now, so we're seeing a huge pivot in wholesale values across the board. Historically speaking, the amount that you would lose on a vehicle's value over the course of your ownership was marginal compared to what you lose today. That monthly payment, easily between $1,800 and $2,100 per month. What in the world? $94,000 freaking dollars for a 2025 Ford Expedition Max. We have the two most polar opposite examples of the Ford Bronco, the big body Broncos. A minivan will now cost you over $60,000. YouTube Untamed here. Demand is dead. The car market has officially flipped. In today's video, I'm going to present to you some new stats, facts, and figures that paint a clear picture as to why that is and why so many dealers are now beginning to panic. So many of these vehicles, they've been sitting on lots for over a year at this point. We're going to highlight those, so stick with me as we talk through it all. You know it's saying something when the Ford Bronco Raptor has been sitting on dealership lots on average 4 to 5 months across the country. 4 to 5 months. If you recall, when this vehicle first came out, these were flying off the shelf. I'm talking selling before they even hit the dealership lot. These were pre-sold, even oftentimes coming with the markup. But look at that, 6 figures for a Ford Bronco at the end of the day. Henry Ford is rolling in his grave. I find it quite appalling that just a few years ago, dealerships were licking their chops, taking advantage of you and I, the consumer, with these big body Broncos, especially, of course, the Bronco Raptor. But go to any dealership, any Ford dealership, and all you're gonna see is just lines upon lines of unsold big body Broncos. Who would have thought? We talk about it plenty on the channel, but MSRPs, they've risen about 42 to 43% since 2019, across the board, across all vehicle manufacturers. What we don't dissect too much is vehicle inventory numbers. Vehicle inventory has grown at an unprecedented rate throughout the last 2.5 years. So much so that many dealerships now are turning away their allocations on many of their models. They're turning away deliveries because they know that they will not be able to sell that vehicle. Vehicle inventory growth rate was unprecedented between 2024 and 2025. Here at the end of 25, teetering into 2026, we are already seeing a 21 to 22% year-over-year growth rate of vehicle inventory sitting on dealership lots. That is alarming for so many dealerships across the country. People are just not coming out and putting their hard-earned money toward a wildly overpriced vehicle anymore. Instead of trading in their vehicle every 3 to 5 years, they're deciding to hold on to their current vehicle much longer, providing that necessary maintenance and service, keeping it on the road because that is much wiser financially. And honestly, you can't blame people for not wanting to buy a new vehicle today. You can get a mid-sized pickup truck, you're still spending over $50,000 on average for a Ford Ranger, which is absolutely insane to me. Once you start looking at the F-150s down here, the average price range across this entire lineup right here is between $65,000 and $70,000. Some of them teetering over 85 grand, which is absolutely appalling. I want to try to do my best to show you guys most affordable options. This is the most affordable F-150 on this entire lot. This is a Ford F-150 STX trim, just under $53,000, $52,830. Remember, throughout the last few years, going to any Ford dealership, you would be hard-pressed to find a nicely trimmed, nicely spec'd Super Duty pickup truck. I want to show you two things. One, the most affordable option. This is a bare bones, steely wheels, sparse down version of a Super Duty, an XL trimmed example of the F-250. They want $58,530 for it, sporting the 6.8 liter gas engine. Let me show you the most expensive option on the lot, F-250 Platinum. This one is sporting the high output 6.7 liter Power Stroke diesel engine. Look at that, 6 figures now, 103,000, just under 104 grand for this Super Duty pickup. Absolutely insane. And in most states, given your sales tax for the state, you're going to easily be looking at over 110 grand after everything is said and done. Pretty wild, huh? But let's face it, most Americans, we live off of debt. And we have been throughout the last couple of decades, really, right? Most Americans, they claim to be living paycheck to paycheck. Most Americans truly are. And when you look at their credit card statements, people are living off their credit cards. And that is just something you can't do given credit card interest rates being between 21 and 25% APR. That's unsustainable. So that makes sense that people are not coming out and buying these wildly overpriced pickups. You cannot justify a monthly payment on $100,000 Super Duty. That monthly payment easily between $1,800 and $2,100 per month on that particular example. Can you imagine? Like we're living in a twilight zone. It was not all that long ago that you can come out and buy a brand new F-350 Lariat and expect to spend maybe $60,000 to $70,000. But now, look at that, high 90s, 6 figures after taxes. Yikes. Guys, I have not looked at this King Ranch example just yet. I wonder if it's gonna break the record of beating that $103,000 price point. almost $102,710 for this 2026 Ford F-250 King Ranch. As I look at most of the F-150s here and the Super Duties, most of them are 2025 models. There's actually a couple 2024 sprinkled in here. Can you imagine that? They've been sitting on a dealership lot for dang near 2 years at this point. Imagine the type of discount the dealership needs to do in order to move that inventory as 2026s are beginning to hit the lot. Because new vehicle supply has shot to the moon, we've seen kind of an interesting thing happen in the last 2 or 3 months. Last 2 or 3 months, we've seen a lot of dealerships across the country actually desiring your used vehicle. They're wanting your trade-in so badly because they can't sell these new examples here for $100,000, but they can sell your used Super Duty for maybe $45,000, $50,000. They can do that, and there's a huge profit margin on your trade-in. But they're running out of space on their dealership lots now, so we're seeing a huge pivot in wholesale values across the board. Your used trade-in, well, the value is going down day after day. Now it's become more of an issue of moving metal and making space on dealership lots. And as you can see all around me here, they're tapped out. And this is not just indicative of my local dealerships here, this is everywhere. Go to your local dealerships, I guarantee it, you're gonna see the same exact thing. So they're incentivizing your trade-in much less. You know, seemingly with each passing week, wholesale values are starting to come down, and it's coming down quite quickly. They don't need additional metal on this lot. They just need to get rid of what they have. You know it's saying something when you go to Toyota dealerships and you see a whole lineup of unsold Toyota RAV4s. Toyota RAV4s were always like pre-sold, especially the desirably trimmed examples, much like what you see behind me here. They would sell immediately, sometimes before they hit the dealership. But nowadays, even they are stacking up on dealership lots. Kind of wild. I'm interested to see what happens with the Toyota Tundra in particular, as well as the Toyota Tacoma, but especially the Tundra. This year has been plagued with that pretty large engine recall, that safety recall affecting the main crankshaft bearing. Machining debris was left in the engines on the production of so many of these units. That has totally given the Toyota Tundra nameplate a tremendous black eye. The sales of these, I don't know, they're questionable. Toyota likes to beat their chest claiming they have record number of deliveries of the Tundra. And what they mean by that is record number of deliveries to dealerships. What they don't mean is the number of sales that they've had. They've had to add on very enticing leasing options of the Tundra in order to up their numbers. They had to offer incentivized interest rates of 1.9% or better to move these Tundras, which they've never done with this nameplate. And they're also offering huge discounts on this truck, which they've never had to do in previous years. So consider all of that when Toyota's beating their chest. This right here is not a popular truck. So many people are quick to trade this in right after they buy it because it is not the Toyota of the past. To put it bluntly, people have wisened up. They've realized that the quality of these vehicles is not what it once was, all while they hiked up price tags substantially over recent years. It makes zero sense. People are not falling for it anymore. Toyota Tundra should never cost this much money. Here we have a platinum example for $74,043. 74 grand for a freaking Toyota Tundra. Yikes. Obviously, I pick on Toyota plenty because I care about the brand. I hate that they've deviated so much from their core values in recent years, right? They're just chasing green credits and they're getting away from what made the brand so great, right? They used to be great because they were simplistic, affordable, and reliable. That's all of them, right? All of them were. Not anymore. These Tundras here, the average price tag of this whole lineup is easily over $70,000. And they've lessened the displacement size of the motor. Now you're forced to have a twin-turbo V6. You no longer get a trusty, reliable, brutish 5.7-liter V8 that would last forever. Same goes with a Tacoma. You'd buy a Tacoma to last forever. Not anymore. All of these here, you're forced to have a 4-cylinder underneath the hood, a turbocharged 4-banger with that little I-Force there. No thanks. And to add insult to injury, they're all made entirely out of Mexico now. No thanks. Average price tag of this entire Toyota Tacoma lineup is over $50,000. Here we have an example of a Toyota Tacoma Limited. Check it out. $55,348 for that Tacoma Limited. Yikes. Many of these examples here are unsold 2025 units. Only a couple of 2024s, but they've been sitting here forever. And the 26s, well, they're beginning to hit dealership lots across the country. That's going to be a huge problem for so many Toyota dealers here soon. Say it, we've become a victim of greed and inflation combined. Inflation, though, hasn't affected our pay and salaries for the most part, right? They've hiked up MSRPs over 42% since 2019, but our pay and salaries hasn't come close to growing that much in that time. Vehicle manufacturers having to push a whole lot of leasing options and great incentivized leasing options. That's a tall tale sign that sales are doing very poorly. That's like their first indication that, well, we need to do something to move this metal. We need to get these off of our dealership lots, especially before 26s begin to hit. So expect to see an increase in the number of leasing incentives here soon. Gotten to the point where so many people feel as though they have to go out and buy a vehicle like this Ford Escape or the Ford Bronco Sports down there. These very bare bones, buttermilk, basic vehicles that are quite boring. They're not exciting at all, but they scratch the itch. Look at it. The all-wheel drive badge looks a little wonky, doesn't it? A little crooked. I'm not sure if that's on purpose. Let's see here. No, it's not. Interesting, I just spotted that. But you see what I'm getting at here. All vehicles are seemingly just getting increasingly boring over the years. Here we have an example, $34,585. Engine outsourced to Mexico. It won't be long, probably, until more components are outsourced to Mexico. Ford has unfortunately outsourced way too much of their vehicle production and component production to cheaper labor countries. And about that dad life, I always look at the Ford Expeditions here, and I'm just appalled by how expensive they've gotten. Right? If you have a large family, well, your money is being split many, many ways as it is. Let me show you. I'll pick right here. I think this is a platinum, so this one's expensive. Get a load of that. What in the world? $94,000 freaking dollars for a 2025 Ford Expedition Max. Expedition Platinum, this is insane to me that we've gotten to that point. Again, easily over 6 figures after everything is said and done. The fees are included, their bogus dock fee, taxes, blah, 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 you name it. 100 grand. Only for this to depreciate tremendously as soon as you walk off the lot. Pretty wild, huh? Let's face it, vehicles, they're depreciating assets. All of them are. You don't buy them as investments, maybe unless it's a classic Porsche 911, I get it, but there's very few examples, especially ones that you're gonna drive every single day. Toyota, up until recently, had a few options that you could buy and drive for a couple years, few years, and not lose your rear end on when it comes to resale. Not anymore. All of those new generation Toyotas over there, you're gonna lose tremendously, especially the hybridized versions. You're gonna lose a ton come trade-in time. Bring up depreciation on purpose because historically speaking, the amount that you would lose on a vehicle's value over the course of your ownership was marginal compared to what you lose today. Nowadays, you go buy one of these brand new Ford Explorers that you see here for $60,000, you drive it for a few years, you'd be lucky to get maybe 30 grand for it when you trade it in. A 30 grand loss is huge, and that wasn't always the case. Historically speaking, you'd probably lose maybe $10,000, $15,000 over that same duration for that same vehicle purchase. That starting price point is just too high. Get a load of this site here. We have the two most polar opposite examples of the Ford Bronco, the big body Broncos here, okay? This right here, of course, a sparse down bare bones version, you got steely wheels on it. Then of course, right here, a maxed out version of the Ford Bronco Raptor. Let me show you what the most inexpensive version of the big body Bronco is. Look at that, $44,500. That still feels like 15 grand too expensive for what this vehicle is. Of course, cloth interior, like 45 grand for that. That feels criminal to me. I was actually expecting to see something in the 30s. I hadn't looked at that price until just then. This one here, like I showed you, 103 grand for this. Wow. I mentioned how people are now choosing to keep a hold of their vehicle for much longer, rather than trading it in every 3 to 5 years. But that serves at a detriment to some people because trying to sustain these vehicles with all the added technology and creature comforts that have been included in these vehicles, that's becoming quite cumbersome for so many people. There's a lot of technology. If something fails in that vehicle, you're spending out the rear to try to get that thing fixed. So again, the ability for people to actually pop the hood and actually work on their vehicles, that's going away with all this added technology and everything just being stuffed into these vehicles. The hybridization of absolutely everything, turbocharging everything, they've become too complex for people. So everywhere I look at this dealership lot, all the dealers down this entire road, this entire strip, they're stuffed to the gills with inventory. Literally every space is full with either used vehicle inventory or, of course, majority of it being the new inventory over here, stacked to the far back of the dealership lot there. Even their back lot filled to the brim. Something's got to give soon. It's pretty difficult to get excited about these new Explorers. Many of these here are truly between that 55 and 65 grand point. Kind of wild, huh? It's not just with trucks or the full-size off-road SUVs, it's all vehicles like these Toyota Corollas, the Corolla Cross, Toyota Highlander, Toyota Crown, even the all-new, brand-new 6th generation Toyota 4Runner. These are collecting dust on so many Toyota dealership lots across the country, even offered with substantial discounts. These are still sitting. When in Toyota's history have they ever introduced an all-new full redesign of the 4Runner or the Tacoma or the Tundra or the Land Cruiser and had it sit immediately upon reintroduction, right? That's never happened. But right now it's happening because they're forcing you to get a smaller displacement motor, 4-cylinder underneath the hood, a turbocharged 4-banger or a hybridized 4-banger, and they hike the price tags to the moon. I'll remind you of what they cost. Here we have a limited example. Look at that. $61,000 for this Toyota 4Runner Limited. You buying it? Even the Toyota Sienna, right? This right here is a hot commodity. Families love this because the price points, although they're high, they haven't been spiked to the moon quite like the full-size SUV segment. Like compared to the Toyota Sequoia, these are still bearable by comparison. Let me remind you how much I want for it. Even this though, a minivan will now cost you over $60,000. Tell me the truth, would you buy this all-new 6th generation Toyota 4Runner if it had a naturally aspirated V6 still under the hood, like it had in the previous generation, that 4-liter V6, would you buy it? You know, they don't look bad. They don't look bad. I think the 5th gen does look better. I have a biased opinion on that for sure. But this right here, would you spend 60 grand if it had a 4-liter V6? Hyundai dealership, all other vehicles are just caked with dust and dirt and grime. All of them are just covered because, well, they've been sitting here for many, many months unsold. That's hugely problematic as the 26s are now beginning to arrive. These have been sitting here for so long. What gives? Supply has far exceeded demand at this point, and it's only going to get worse as so many people are having their vehicles repossessed. We talk about it plenty on the channel. I won't beat it to death on this video, but right now we're seeing an unprecedented growth rate of 30-day and 60-day auto loan delinquencies, the highest that we have seen since the 08 and 09 recession. And by the end of the year, we're slated to surpass what we've seen during that recession. Let that sink in. Right now, people are failing to make payments. They're voluntarily having their vehicles repossessed from their driveway because they cannot justify the monthly payments anymore. Between the cost of rent, the mortgage, cost of groceries, cost of insurance, everything has just shot to the moon to where people feel like, I don't know, they're suffocating. Honestly, I never thought the day would come where I'd walk a Hyundai dealership and see price tags like this. $53,000 for this 2026 Santa Fe Hybrid, calligraphy all-wheel drive. 53 grand for a Hyundai. Just saying that out loud makes me sick to my stomach. Like, doesn't even make sense to me. Just up the way from it, we have a whole lineup of unsold Palisades here. We have a few 2026s here. Let me show you how much I want for this one here. This is an XRT Pro all-wheel drive Hyundai Palisade. But look at that, 52 grand. My thought of either a Kia or a Hyundai really is 35 grand tops. That's just my mindset on them. Granted, of course, they've made huge strides in the design and styling of these vehicles, but at the end of the day, I don't know. I don't know if I'd pay Toyota money for a South Korean vehicle manufacturer. You tell me, would you? So between dealerships turning away their vehicle allocations and their deliveries, they really have one of two choices. One, they could try to hold their best to hold firm to these price tags and wait for vehicle manufacturer incentives to come down the pipeline, or they can get creative. Rather than waiting till the last second to get very desperate, they can start moving this metal with substantial discounts. I'm talking 20 to 40% off on some of these vehicles. It's not unheard of. You get 20% off quite easily right now on most vehicles, right? If you just try, pick up the phone, call them, say, hey, I see that there's 250 of that same exact vehicle within a 500-mile radius of me. Are you willing to work a deal? Pick up the phone, try to do that. They're going to have to. They have no choice unless they want flooring costs to eat them alive. For those of you who don't know, flooring costs, think of it as a small line of credit, like a credit card. Every single one of these vehicles that sits here, with each passing month, they pay a small interest rate fee on every single unit here, which it's very small. But when you start adding up the vehicles here, and you have a few hundred vehicles that have been sitting at a dealership for several months, sometimes over a year, year and a half, that's when it becomes problematic for a dealership. Every single month, that is a huge amount being bled out from that dealership just to keep this inventory on the lot. Most dealers will try to sell their inventory within the first 60 days because generally speaking, most vehicle manufacturers will offer a 0% financing rate on that first 60 days. That flooring cost won't hit until maybe that 2-month mark. In case I haven't made it clear by now, it is 110% a buyer's market, and treat it as such. If a dealership isn't willing to play ball with you in your backyard, pick up the phone, call one, maybe a state or two away, and work your way closer to ones that are within your state. It is a buyer's market. Do not let them convince you otherwise. You control the conversation and expect a great deal, great discount, and plus an incentivized interest rate. Not this either or nonsense that a lot of dealerships try to push. I'll give you a 1.9% interest rate over 60 months or $10,000 off. No. Demand both, and in fact, maybe 15 grand with that interest rate will make the deal happen. Be stern and be clear. The only time this year that we saw an uptick in the sales of new vehicles was when we had the whole pre-tariff scare, that fear-mongering tactic being deployed by so many dealerships across the country. Hey, tariffs are coming, come buy your vehicle before those tariffs hit. Only then, it was between April and May. That's when we saw that spike up in sales. But what dealerships didn't realize is the people who came out and bought those vehicles during that time, they were already planning to buy a vehicle later in the year anyway. So they just kind of did it prematurely out of the whole fear-mongering bit. They didn't get any additional new buyers, but rather, right now, this time of year, those same buyers who would have come in, they just bought it early on. It's sad that you can hardly find a mid-sized pickup truck today with a naturally aspirated V6. Really, it's just the Nissan Frontier at this point. These GMC Canyons and the Chevy Colorados of the world, they're turbocharged four-bangers. These four-cylinder turbo engines are just overworked or overclocked engines, and I find it quite frustrating. Let me show you a elevation trimmed example. $51,335 for this 2026 GMC Canyon Elevation. Right next to it, I think we had an AT4, about the same price, $50,825. The fact that you have to spend 50 grand for a mid-sized truck today is quite baffling. And right here, we have an AT4X. Let's see what the top dog will run you. Check it, $61,000. Pretty wild, huh? The vehicles that are getting repossessed this year and the ones that were repossessed last year, really a combined about 3.75 million vehicles within the last 2 years. An unprecedented growth rate there. Those vehicles, well, they got to go somewhere. They're just going to be reintroduced to the used vehicle market. Again, just flooding the market, which ultimately brings down the price tags of your trade-in. Expect that. In the coming months, trade-ins are going to come down, and well, new vehicle inventory is going to remain extremely high. Dealership lots are going to get flooded and overrun. Examples like this brand new Cadillac Escalade IQL Sport are the reason to why we are paying so much for our insurance. Our vehicle insurance is shooting to the moon because of vehicles like this. Someone buys this vehicle, drives it around, ends up totaling it, getting into an accident, and totals out this vehicle. Well, that is $160,000 plus being paid out by insurance. And we all pay into the pot of money for insurance. Whether you want to believe it or not, we all pay into it. And well, if there's a lot of large payouts like this taking place, well, we're all paying the price ultimately. We have an example of a GMC Sierra 1500 sporting the 6.2-liter V8. This is the AT4X trimmed example with the AEV bumpers on it, the AEV wheels. It is a nice example, but what isn't nice is the price point. Over 86 grand for it. You tell me, you buying it? Unless you're planning to refinance your house, good luck affording one of these full-size GMC Sierras here. These 2500s and 3500s, many of these examples are teetering toward that six-figure point, and a few of them are actually over six figures. Pretty sickening that we've gotten to that point. When you drive it off the lot, well, that value is gone, and not a lot of people can actually sustain that type of loss so quickly. And here's a prime example of what I talked about earlier. You either get $11,000 off or a 0% interest rate over 36 months on this GMC 1500, Sierra 1500 elevation trimmed example. Expect both if you're going to come out and buy one of these, especially in the coming months as the 2026s continue to hit. Their lots are going to get flooded. They have to go somewhere. They have to move this metal unless they want to go belly up as a dealership, unless they want to go bankrupt. Let's face it, the whole green energy movement and the EPA restrictions and government mandates, that has propelled these monstrosities, right? We have a Sierra EV here. This is an AT4 EV. Imagine that, an AT4 electric vehicle. It doesn't make a whole lot. It was like an oxymoron there. The price point, over 90 grand. I believe this one was $94,000. Pretty wild. This right here is a failing segment across the country. The EV pickup trucks like the Ford F-150 Lightning, huge flop and a huge loss for the brands. And historically speaking, vehicle manufacturers like Subaru, like Mazda, like Honda, generally Japanese manufacturers, they do a great job at forecasting demand. They're always doing a wonderful job at matching supply at their dealerships to that forecasted demand. They've always done a really good job at it. But even Subaru right now, their dealerships, they're stacked up. This is the most amount of Subarus I've seen at my local dealership in a very long time. They're absolutely everywhere, to every corner of this lot. So this right here, this is saying something, guys. Even though Subaru saw the smallest MSRP price hike since the beginning of the pandemic, even they are starting to feel pretty overpriced. A lot of the Foresters on this lot, a lot of the Outbacks, they're priced in the high 40s. High 40s for a Subaru feels a little criminal. You guys might give me some flack for what I'm about to say, but I grew up in the Subaru era of rally cars, like the 04 to 07, the Hawkeye, the Blob-Eye rally cars, right? The Subaru WRX STIs. They got rid of the STI nameplate and they only have these WRXs. These WRXs, by comparison to those prior rally cars, true rally cars, they feel like Temu versions to some degree, right? I know it's kind of harsh, but this feels like a Temu version of what once was a Subaru WRX STI. Truly trying to save money, you're likely going to have to come out and buy one of these Subaru Imprezas. But much like being good at roller skating, you got to be careful with who you tell if you buy one. $26,000 for this 2025 Subaru Impreza. Quick point I want to make is, of course, the profit margin on a bare bones example of an Impreza differs greatly comparatively to a fully spec'd out Forester, of course. Here we have a discount of $1,000, well, $1,007 off, bringing the price tag down to $27,000 and some change. The profit margin on this is much smaller compared to that Forester, right? They can get a much larger discount on the more expensive vehicles. I know that goes without saying, but that's why a lot of dealerships like to stack their dealership lots full of the high-spec, high-trimmed examples, because not only does the vehicle manufacturer make more money on it, the dealership does too. So keep that in mind. You can negotiate the price tag down tremendously on a more higher-spec trimmed example. I'm going to show you this Subaru Ascent. I normally don't show Subaru too much love on the channel, but you tell me, $50,000, $50,319 for this limited example of a Subaru Ascent. You tell me, you're paying that kind of money? It's kind of wild that all SUVs seemingly are at that $50,000 price point nowadays. What happened to going out and buying that $30,000 SUV with good peace of mind? Even Nissan, with their risk-adverse business model and their trashy garbage CVT transmissions, this company has, well, crapped the bed. And I think we've all heard about that by this point. It's quite concerning because this used to be a fun and exciting brand. Not anymore. All these vehicles, well, they're going to continue doing just this, collecting dust. Even the Nissan Murano has an MSRP right around $50,000 now. That just, just feels weird saying it out loud. Look at that, $51,000 is the MSRP. They have it advertised with an $8,600 off discount. It's going to become probably $15,000 off before they can actually move this metal, or plastic, I should say. Here we go. We have another example of $5,000 off or a 0% interest rate over 60 months for this 2025 Nissan Pathfinder, all while the 26s are beginning to hit. They're going to have to get a lot more creative, a lot more desperate if they want any chance of selling this inventory. Nissan Kicks received a very notable facelift just this year. But even with the facelift and with the price tag still remotely low, they're not having any luck selling. This one has a $3,600 off discount, bringing it down to just about 27 grand. And yet, it's been sitting here for several months, I could tell you. Nissan Frontier truly is one of the very few trucks that I would stand behind at this point, especially the Pro 4X. I think it is good bang for your buck. You still get a naturally aspirated V6 underneath the hood. It still is offers that level of simplicity, that rugged truck feel to it, kind of dated feel, but I personally like that, especially when it comes to a pickup truck. And the price points, they haven't gotten completely out of touch with reality. More often than not, you can get $8,000 to $9,000 off of these quite easily. You can easily pick this one up in the high 30s across the country. This is a 2026 Nissan Frontier. You tell me, Would you buy it? At any Nissan dealership, you'll be met with a huge lineup of unsold Nissan Rogues. Many of them are priced in the high 30s, low $40,000 range. You tell me, you're paying that kind of money for a Nissan Rogue? Even Honda dealerships are being stacked with inventory right now. Even the all-new Honda Passport Trail Sport examples, which are very popular, they thought these were going to sell much better than they are. $51,000. For this particular example, people thought they're going to sell better because they still offer the tried and true, trusty 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6 underneath the hood. So they didn't deviate and force you to have a tiny turbocharged 4-banger underneath the hood, but instead they still offer a level of peace of mind. But these two, they're not selling that well. What gives? Honda CR-Vs, they're stacking up too. It's not that long ago that I recall these being in the high $20,000 range, but get a load of this. $42,130 now. Low 40s. That blows my mind that we've increased the price tags of the CR-V of all vehicles, so much. Walked up to these full-size SUVs over here in the Chevy lot, the Chevy Tahoes, the Chevy Suburbans. I was expecting pretty high price points. I was expecting maybe $75,000 to $85,000, but what I was not expecting was the price tag on this one. Here we have a Chevy Suburban high country trimmed example. So a high spec example, of course. Got the shiny wheels on it. But get a load of this price. I was not expecting this. Look at this, $107,000 for a 2026 Chevy Suburban high country. We've gotten to that point that even Chevys are costing 6 figures. Absolutely sickening. A lot of people will fail to tell you is General Motors dealerships, Chevy, GMC, Cadillac, they're among the very worst at offering dealership discounts on top of vehicle manufacturer discounts. They historically have always leaned on the vehicle manufacturer discounts. Like right here, we have an example. We have the red tag discount, that sale going on Silverados, right? That is a vehicle manufacturer GM discount being applied to their trucks. That is not a dealership discount. Dealerships are on top of the vehicle manufacturer discounts. But because GM has historically done so many of their vehicle manufacturer incentives, they fail to do their dealership incentives on top of it. So they tend to be among the worst. Guys, we'll wrap up the video there. Let me know what you're seeing at your local lots. Is demand dead across the country? Everywhere that I go, dealerships look like this. This is not indicative of what I see in my backyard only. Tell me what you're seeing and what dealerships tend to be doing the worst. Appreciate you watching as always. If you appreciate this type of content whatsoever, I do respectfully request that you please consider liking and subscribing. Your support means a ton, and I promise you it doesn't go unnoticed. Till next time.